Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming tonight. And let me just start off by saying I'm really sorry about all that mail. It was not my intention. I had this nice little mail program planned about just talking about the things that I've done in my life and why I would like to represent the 53rd Assembly District. And then I was attacked by people who don't agree with the things I've done or the people I've worked for. And so I'm honored and proud to have worked for them and will continue to carry those voices with me if elected to the Assembly. I did work for the California Leaf Conservation Voters and the Environmental Defense Fund, and most recently the consumer attorneys. Have you heard about trial lawyers lately? Anything about that in the mail that you've gotten? It's my honor to have worked for people who are about accountability and justice. That's what I've done my whole life. The California Conservation Voters, we worked really hard on environmental justice issues. At the Environmental Defense Fund, we did the same thing. We did marry a lot of business with the environmental community, which is really important to make sure they're stakeholders in change. And at the consumer attorneys, of course, we worked for families who are injured by products or people. Say you live in Louisiana right now and you have a beachfront home. Guess you probably want someone to represent you in court if your business is severely injured or damaged or bankrupt by the current oil situation. If you had a family member who was trapped in a coal mine in West Virginia, you'd probably want someone to help you get back the losses that you endured because of that crime, because those companies knew they were doing something wrong, allowed it to happen, and those are the kinds of people I've worked for, those are the kinds of people I will continue to work for, and I'm honored to say I have. I started my career with Lieutenant Governor Leo McCarthy and did a lot of elder care issues with him as well as environmental issues. I did serve in the Clinton administration for President Bill Clinton. I worked at the Department of Commerce doing international trade. And during both of those gentlemen's lives and their tenure as elected officials, they had very hard economic times to look at. Both Leo McCarthy and President Clinton had bad times. It was the late 90s that I worked for Leo, and the early 90s for President Clinton, obviously. And both men were able to think outside the box and figure out how to solve real problems. With Leo, it was because we were having a lot of base closures. So he was very smart. He said, let's get a lot of engineers together and do environmental technologies, take them around the world, and make sure that everyone's prospering for this knowledge that we have here in LA. And ironically, a lot of it came right out of the 53rd. And then, of course, Bill Clinton thought outside the box on a whole range of issues. So I would like to go to Sacramento and think outside the box, work across the aisle, and really make California the strong place that it can be, particularly with the green economy. I believe that can be based here. We have the knowledge, the desire, the will, and it can happen. Thank you.
All right, this is where the fun starts, if it hasn't already started. So we have a lot of candidates and a nifty Q&A system by which stakeholders, you, members of the Mar Vista Community Council, have submitted questions in advance. I've got about 30 here in front of me. And we sent those questions to the candidates in advance. Each candidate has had a chance to think about which two they would like to answer. And we will give each candidate 2 minutes to answer 2 questions. They can answer one for 20 seconds and another for 1 minute and 40 seconds. But it sticks into 2 minutes. During the opening statement, I thought we did really well with not letting the applause interrupt too much. It was natural, it was free-flowing. I think time will be at a premium during this next segment. So keep that in mind as the candidates take a stab at this system. So we once again will be drawing the names randomly. We've already drawn the first name, and it's Democrat Nick Karno. Nick Karno will tell me which 2 questions he'd like to answer. I will read them, and obviously we may repeat some questions, and I'll try to summarize them if they're a little long. But Nick, your questions. Which 2 would you like?
Turn it on.
Oh, you gotta get the
Testing. I'll do number 11 and number 12.
All right. So, number 11, number 12, I'm going to read these. I'm going to try to get through them relatively quickly, but so that everyone understands them. Question number 11 is, From a stakeholder who says, I have lived in Mar Vista for 27 years. My biggest concern is about the gangs here, which are active in my neighborhood. We have the Culver City Boys, Sotel, and others. Would you address your experience in fighting this, if any, and what would you do about this if elected? That's number 11. Question number 12. We've all heard about the power of the green movement to create jobs. What do you see as the best ways of incentivizing industry and customers to get the maximum number of local, well-paying jobs that increase the state economy, tax breaks, pushing the aerospace industries to do more than military hardware, new technologies, better education, etc.? What have you done to better understand this issue? Have you visited an aerospace lab, learned about green technology, etc.? That was almost 2 minutes. Go ahead.
My real quick question before we begin, is that 2 minutes per question or just 2 minutes for both?
2 minutes for both.
Okay. Starting...
actually, yeah, let's make sure he doesn't lose his time here. And
I'll do a minute.
Have at it.
Okay, so the first question regarding gangs. I've worked as a city attorney here in Los Angeles for 8 years. I've worked for about 4 years doing nuisance abatement. I tell people that the difference between regular criminal prosecutions and nuisance abatement is like going after the bees and going after the beehive. Nuisance abatement deals with property crimes. And I've dealt with a lot of gang houses, crack houses, and the best way to think of gangs is as a business. And the best way to go after a business is to go after its assets. And there's a lot of reforms that we can do in terms of expediting ways in which we can revoke alcohol license, revoke a CUP, a certified, conditional use permit. We can also do civil injunctions, in which case you can take over actual properties. I've done this in my capacity as a city attorney. It's incredibly effective in disrupting gang crime. The next issue is in regards to the green economy. I'm happy to say that I got the endorsement of the Daily Breeze newspaper just last Sunday, and one of the things that they mentioned was some of the ideas that I proposed, one of them being an idea for energy efficiency. I didn't get this by myself. This was a company I worked for called Clean Energy Solutions. They're based off a model in Cambridge called Cambridge Energy Alliance, and essentially it's a partnership between local cities, utilities, local banks, and it's hiring green contractors and energy auditors to go door to door to businesses and small businesses, green them, and it's financed by the local bank. And once the energy bill drops, those savings can be passed through the utility bill, no cost to the property owner, and actually self-finance itself. This is a very, very successful program in Cambridge, Massachusetts. It's being done in Cincinnati, and we can do it here in California if we have the right leadership and the right knowledge. So that's it.
All right. System is working so far. Democrat, Edgar Saenz. Which two questions would you like to address?
This feels like Jeopardy. Mr. Watt, I'll take question 1 and question 4.
Question 1 and question 4. Question 1 is, decriminalizing possession of small amounts of marijuana would save up to tens of millions of dollars in incarceration costs alone. Considering this, other potential revenue streams, and the current budget crisis, do you support the Regulate, Control, and Tax Cannabis Act of 2010? Question 4 is, please describe what steps you will take to address the Santa Monica Airport's negative impacts on the West Los Angeles neighborhoods.
I will do everything I can to cut jet pollution at Santa Monica Airport. The first thing we do is jets don't belong at Santa Monica. Let them land at LAX. Second, create a minimum buffer at Santa Monica. The practical effect of this will be that jets won't land there because the runways won't have sufficient length for them to land or take off. Third, nurturing relationships with FAA management and members of Congress will be crucial to secure the federal government's cooperation. I understand the community's concerns with jet operations. As I mentioned earlier, in Westchester we face the same issues you do with safety, noise, and pollution. And for most of this decade, I gained tremendous experience as Congresswoman Waters' LAX deputy. I'm also a longtime RSAC board member of the grassroots groups that fights airport expansion. And as